Please don't bully me, Nagatoro. Where do I start? So, if you're anything like me and you enjoy pursuing anime or manga related videos on YouTube, there's a very good chance you've seen this face, or this face, or this face. Now, this anime girl has been absolutely blowing up, and for one very obvious reason. The art, or more specifically, these extremely sadistic looking faces. The reason I began researching into this whole topic was due to the popularity of specifically this one AMV edit with close to 19 million views at the time of this recording. And just to be clear, this isn't a one-off fluke as well. Another AMV using this character as its focus is nearing 11.5 million views. Of course, looking for something to read and seeing how interesting this manga looked, I went straight to the comments, found the source title, and figured out how to get my little necrotic gamer hands on it as quick as possible. The title of this manga is Please Don't Bully Me, Nagatoro, and according to its tags, it is a comedy, romance, and school life manga. But who made this masterpiece, I hear you ask? Well, it was written and drawn by a man named Nanashi, and published by the company Kodansha. It was first released in late 2017, and is now currently on its 9th volume, with a full anime adaptation on the way. But in this video, I thought it'd be a great idea to give any of you watching who haven't decided whether to read the manga, especially since the anime's on its way, a little taste tester of what it's about. And for the people who have read it, I'll give my own thoughts up to where it is today. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
I did my time, and I went out. So a future and a fate, indulgent cuts. The soul is not so vibrant. The reckoning, the sickening, packaging subversion, pseudo-sacred thing perversion.
So to preface what we're going over today, I think having a quick look at the not exactly safe for work past of the artist is pertinent when discussing the story. As I previously stated, the faces of the character are a huge part in why people start reading the manga. But why? When you look at those faces, doesn't it seem kind of familiar? Perhaps you've seen something similar to it in other stuff? Well, it turns out if your taste in manga is anything like your hentai/doujin taste, there's a good chance you've seen this person's previous work. You see, before working on this manga, they'd built a name for themselves through masochist, extreme humiliation porn/doujin/hentai. If you want to hear more about that, I highly recommend the video from the channel Dakota Broski. Very interesting stuff. But that isn't what we're here to talk about today, just thought it was important to keep in mind when looking at certain scenes from this. Please Don't Bully Me, Nagatoro, or the shittier translation, Please Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro.
I'm gonna throw up.
Put simply, covers the interactions between the main character, Naoto Hachioji, who in layman's terms is a massive pussy, and a girl named Nagatoro. Naoto is an extremely shy artist who's easily flustered, which the other main character takes advantage of by senselessly debating him with things ranging from sexual innuendos to frame him as a pervert to just straight up physical abuse. I'll put it like this: if dominant tsundere anime girls are Al-Qaeda, Nagatoro is ISIS. And to explain this to you, look no further than the opening chapter. You see, it all begins one fateful day when Naoto decides to relax in the library after school to finish homework as he usually does. However, upon entering, he sees a group of what he knows as the popular girls sitting at a table near him. Being effectively socially disabled, he of course chooses to ignore the girls completely until he makes one fatal mistake. One mistake that kicks off a year of teasing and embarrassment. Knocking his bag off from the desk, which scatters the papers inside all over the floor. One of the girls decides to help pick them up. Unfortunately for him, the papers that fell out of his bag happen to be a collection of homemade fantasy manga panels with exceptionally cringy writing. Each girl grabs a sheet before bursting into a mix of laughter and mockery, while Naoto stands there trying to brace for the speeding semi-trailer of embarrassment barreling towards him. But soon enough, they lose interest and leave the library. Well, all except for one, the first girl, who picked up the papers. They sit in a strange silence as the girl further inspects the sketch. Then, suddenly, she tells a sweat-drenched Naoto that she's a freshman and asks if he's a sophomore. Upon affirming the girl's guess, she states that Naoto is her senpai with perhaps the biggest shit-eating grin I've ever seen. Already unsettled from having his cringy manga exposed and confused that this girl is still talking to him, she begins reading lines from the manga in what I could only imagine to be an extremely sarcastic tone. She then claims that this whole story was just some weird fantasy fanfiction with an almost carbon copy, self-insert main character of himself. Although one thing was completely different from his actual self. Bringing attention to one particular part with the main character in his manga, Siegfried uses his unmatched charm to seduce a swordswoman. To make a point of this, she begins acting out the scene as the swordswoman. And she knows martial arts for whatever reason. I don't know, Japan. Stunned and looking like he just got flashbanged after running a triathlon, Naoto catches on that this girl expects him to act out as Siegfried in that scene. He slowly approaches her, extends his hand out as it trembles, and lightly touches her hair before yanking it back away. This girl then brutally berates him over the fact that he's neither hot nor confident enough to ever be able to do something like that. It goes to the extent of him literally crying. And the weird sadistic cherry on top of that is that she pulls out a handkerchief and forcefully wipes the tears from his eyes. Then, like some switch was flicked inside of her, she stops what she was doing, apologizes for the teasing, and leaves him there, trying to comprehend what the fuck just happened. Alright, so first of all, the big selling point of this whole story is the dynamic between Nagatoro and Naoto, so I think it's only fair if we start from there. Through the first couple of chapters, we effectively see Naoto thrown into the deep waters of social interactions. Nagatoro slowly sinks her claws into each aspect of his school life, which we come to find out that he doesn't necessarily dislike the time he spends with Nagatoro, even though he ends up being called names and getting his buttons pushed a lot of the time. I think for everyone's first time reading the manga, all you can think is, why this guy? Has she just taken a liking to him, or is she fucking with him? I remember reading through this initially and being frustrated over what could possibly compel her to not just mess with the guy, but mess with him this often, specifically seeking him out, usually in the art room, which he happens to be the only member of, and then it hit me. She likes him. This entire time, she's been projecting her feelings, testing him, seeing how he reacts to certain things. Partially because she likes doing it, of course, but also I think it's her trying to figure out how to tell him her feelings. Or here's an idea. She's trying to make him fall in love with her so she doesn't even have to confess. And from that realization, this whole thing turns from sadistic to emotionally draining. This might just be me, but I remember screaming at my monitor like a psychopath because the one lasting romantic moment out of all 80 of these current chapters was interrupted. It's so frustrating, but it pushed me to keep coming back, so that hopefully I'll get that sweet, sweet payoff ending. I just hope I'm not looking back at this video when the manga finishes and they never actually end up together, which in that case, you can bet that I'm nuking this video from my channel's existence. Over the time I've spent making this video, it's forced me to reread many of the parts of the manga that seem more significant now than when I originally read it. Not necessarily because those moments are exceptionally narrative pushing or provide us with vital information, but it allows us to see how these two characters have changed from then to the present. Many would look at Please Don't Bully Me Nagatoro as a niche manga, and now anime, for the sad masochist weeb type to fantasize over. And remembering what the artist was previously known for, it's not a stretch to call it that from an outside position. But I've realized this story isn't just another fad kept alive only by its shock factor and eye-catching art, but rather a charming romance story between two opposites, and how they've changed each other for the better. This manga, so far, is great. It's funny, it's charming, and the will they won't they question will keep you reading until the end. So, for my final score, I give this manga a binge read until 4 AM out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.